Hello, beautiful humans. My apologies for it taking so long to get to my official first episode, but here I am. And today's topic is misgendering and bathroom situations pre-pandemic as compared to the present. So I would say a large amount of people, myself included, went back to work outside the home starting sometime this year. So we're in the 4th month of the year, and I'm not sure what it has been like for other trans folks, but I know for me, it's been a huge adjustment, and there are certain things that I am now just kind of realizing, things that affected me and were challenging or maybe not challenging for me pre-pandemic, and then kind of almost felt like they didn't exist in the middle because I spent a lot of time at home, and then now it's like they're really hitting me, or I'm recalling certain things. Oh, and before I forget, this lovely mask, it says, "Please don't call me ma'am." There's also, "Please don't call me sir," and I think there's, "Please don't call me sir or ma'am." And this is by Jess, and they have a website. It's JESSSS.com. I will put it in the notes. And the masks go for a sliding scale if you would like one and it's not within your price range. But I definitely recommend you check out their site later on. So, when I was sheltering in place at the time, I had a roommate, and my roommate is queer, or was queer. And so I never had to worry about being misgendered. My cats don't misgender me. I really wasn't going out much at all. And prior to that, I would say, like, it didn't have a huge impact on me when I was misgendered, but it was a little disheartening, depending on where I was, what I was wearing, who the person was. And I was still at a place where I did struggle a bit to ask for my correct pronouns, even being in places that I would frequent and where I kind of had a decent relationship with the person who was doing it. I almost felt like, oh, I don't want to put them out. So just would let it be. Then it was almost like misgendering didn't exist during, sort of during the pandemic. There's one thing I did start doing, which was dancing. I grew up dancing. It was something I loved and then kind of got away from as a young adult, and had always wanted to get back to it. And then the more I realized about my gender identity and myself, the less I wanted to do it publicly. And sheltering in place gave me this opportunity to start dancing again, because I was home and it was Zoom, and I guess I didn't feel like there would be so much focus on me. I mean, there shouldn't be anyway in classes, but like, I guess just didn't feel like I would be drawing any extra attention. I'd just be there. But I wore clothes that I don't usually, or really don't leave the house in, such as leggings, just more fitted clothing. And most of the students were females. Nobody outwardly identifying as TGNC, as non-binary, and or having they them pronouns next to their Zoom name, which is something I do. So a lot of times I would just be kind of lumped in with ladies, girls, and I very rarely said anything. That being said, there were a few teachers who actually went out of the way and asked me what were my pronouns, or like how they could be more inclusive in addressing all the other students. So that was really nice. But so that would be like probably one of the biggest experiences I had with like really thinking about it. But there really wasn't much day-to-day interaction, face-to-face, any of that. The one thing, and I think this really, I'm not sure how it would have felt if I was in an actual physical space with all these people, but I was in a Zoom room with some theater folks that I work with. I'm pretty much the only trans person in this group, and there were some people that I didn't really know, but a lot of people that know me. And I was asked to read a scene, and I guess originally it was read with a male and a female actor. Really doesn't matter any way you look at it, but so I read the male part with this lovely young woman. And when we're done, the commentary is usually supposed to be about the piece, the writing. That's really what we're looking at in this group, is the writing. And this gentleman said, "Oh, I really think it's interesting that you decided to cast this with 2 women. And he like commented something about like the feel of it or whatever, but that was not about the writing." And he also like majorly misgendered me. And I immediately said, "I'm not a woman." And a couple other people chimed in that he was confused, and that was just super uncomfortable. I'm getting nervous even just talking about it. It was a very, very uncomfortable experience. And God, it was like somebody just like smacked me across the face, because I think there was a large part of me that forgot how horrible it feels being misgendered. And then the shame and self-consciousness when it happens like publicly in front of a bunch of people, and like somebody doesn't get your gender and like doesn't even comprehend what's going on. So that was really just ick. The other thing I started to notice, because I have some health issues, and I'm sure I'll talk about it in another episode, but I had a lot of doctors I needed to see, and it was quite a few months before doctors started taking patients in person. And once I started making the appointments and going back, I also remembered pretty much none of the, I would say just about all of the doctors' offices, dentists, things like that I go to are really up to speed on gender, and that there are more than 2 gender identities, and that it's quite possible that what you perceive is not what somebody's actual gender is, and it's nice to ask or to make an effort. And also that not everybody likes gender like cis or not cis, trans, not trans. Not everybody wants to be called miss and ma'am and sir. And I get the politeness. I totally understand. And I know that's how some people were raised as well. So they're trying to be polite, but there was so much of that. And that was really hard. And this feeling of me not being allowed to correct them because I don't really know them, and not knowing if I even had the energy to really get into any of that. And these doctor's appointments weren't just like check-ins, like I was there for other things. So I don't know that I was even in the headspace, but I was like, here we go again, it's back. Cause I was almost free from that. I almost was in like this bubble where it was just me, and I know who I am, and I know how I perceive myself, and it doesn't matter who else is around. Well, nobody was around, but it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. Like I just could be me, and I wasn't worried, and there weren't little things throwing me off. So those things kind of made me realize like just how stressful and anxiety provoking being out in the world is for me, and was for me prior to the pandemic. So eventually I had to go back to work. Grateful to be back at work, and but I was so nervous just because it's almost like being in like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like it was almost like I was underground for all this time, and then all of a sudden I like come out into the real world, and there's light and people and socializing, which socializing in person, I don't know about you all, but for me, socializing in person is way different than, socializing in person is way different than on Zoom, FaceTime, or any of those things, definitely texting. So being out in public again, at work, for the most part, like everybody gets it, or they try to get it, and they want to, and I feel affirmed. I feel visible. I don't feel like I'm not allowed to ask for what I need as far as my pronouns. It's a good place to be, and I have some lovely coworkers. One of my coworkers is a cis female, and we spend a lot of time together. So sometimes we'll leave the building together. We will get a lift together, and when the two of us are together and somebody wants to either greet us or say goodbye, I am automatically one of the ladies, and it's ladies, ladies, ladies. And that is like super frustrating. And it's something I noticed a lot, and also forgot that it's something that happened prior to this, because like I said, I wasn't spending a lot of time with people. I was not going out in groups. But when I look at my friend circle, for the most part, and people I would spend my time with, I have a lot more cis friends and straight friends than queer friends, and non-cis friends. So I'm starting to remember getting lumped into that group. Girls, ladies, all you women. So I did not miss that. I also found the re-experiencing these things kind of opened up my mind and pointed out, like, made me recognize why I have really bad social anxiety. I have it anyway, but why my social anxiety started to get really bad again prior to the pandemic. I was struggling with a lot of things, and I did find it very hard to push myself to go out in certain situations. And I just thought it was general self-consciousness and my regular anxiety, but I think it was I know that it was having to face those things. These are things that don't seem like a big deal to most people, but I would have to say for the majority of trans folks, gender nonconforming people, that this is something that can be very, very stressful, and it's so much easier to not deal. And how do you not deal? You don't go anywhere. And when you don't have a choice and you get to not go anywhere, it kind of puts things into perspective. Yeah. So those were my discoveries as far as misgendering and the experiences, how that has an impact on me. The other thing that I guess minorly took for granted during this time at home was bathrooms. I would just, for the most part, I would use my own bathroom, and that was it. The only time I spent out for a long time where I'd use a public restroom was a friend of mine. We would do these really long walks over the summer during the pandemic, and had to stop for a bathroom break on the way. And the one of very few stores that we used, or it was like a fast food kind of place, had single bathrooms, so I didn't have to worry about that. Then traveling with my family at a rest stop was really the first time I had to look at two different gender bathrooms. And being with family, my parents, I'm just gonna straight out say it, I was kind of like ushered to the correct bathroom, meaning the women's room. And that's when I was like, oh, this stuff again. And it didn't happen. It was only a couple times that had happened, and that was more towards the end of everything, when things were starting to get a little bit more safe and opening up. Then I got to work again, and I always had to use the women's restroom just because it's almost like in a space that I know really well. I prefer obviously to use a gender neutral bathroom, but in a space I know really well, where I know the people and am a little bit worried about who I'd run into in a bathroom, I'm a little more prone to use the women's room, but it makes me feel insanely dysphoric. In places that I don't know, and that aren't too crowded, I usually don't even think about it and walk into the men's room. But the fact that these feelings were coming up, like I felt like an imposter, and almost like it took away walking through that door to the women's room and seeing other women there that I knew and knowing that I'm different. It felt weird. It felt like almost like I shed my identity the moment I walked through that door into the bathroom. But I didn't feel 100% okay to go into the men's room. Although one time I accidentally did it because I was in a space where the bathrooms they're switched. In one location, they're set up one way. In the other location, it's almost the exact same layout, but men's and women's is switched. And I walked in without even thinking. And that also made me realize, like, it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. And I hate that. I really, really greatly dislike it. And I hope one day I don't have to make a choice, that none of us have to make a choice. You're just going to the bathroom. Like, it's not about socializing. It's just what you got to do. It's your physical needs. And, I would love for it never to be an issue. That is being majorly optimistic. But I look back now on all the time that I spent mostly alone, mostly in my living space. And I'm really grateful for, I guess, what I would call like a reprieve, a break, a vacation from all those things that really weigh me down. It's like almost like having all these thought clouds just like floating in my head and sometimes bumping together and making so much noise. And the break from that noise, despite so much uncertainty and the stress I had about other things, the break from that noise, now being back out in the world again, I have an immense amount of gratitude and even compassion for myself instead of judgment, because sometimes I feel a lot of shame or like I'm not allowed to have these feelings because so many other people that are not trans are so vocal about it and like minimizing it, like, oh, pronouns, come on, we know who you are, da da da, or like, why should I have to do this, or there's no such thing. And the same thing with bathrooms, almost like trans people are an imposition because we're asking for something that everyone should have the right to. So coming back out in the world now, I realize that all of those things are, for me, stressful. I don't want to say for other people. I do know people who are able to kind of just go with the flow. And those things don't quite bother them as much. But I know for me, I'm sensitive to them. They bother me. I tend to replay certain things in my head over and over again or question certain things. So looking back, and then looking to the present, I'm recognizing that, yes, there was a huge difference. This was a really interesting and enlightening experience for me. And this basically was my personal experience and how things felt for me. I would love to hear from other people if you want to leave comments and let me know if there's anything that I missed or anything that you can identify with or disagree with. I'd love to have a dialogue. So the one last thing that I would say, and I almost feel like I should have put this in the middle, but it's okay. So a lot of times, like, it's not even correcting somebody, but like a lot of times I'd go about my day, and if I was misgendered, it meant this. And if I wasn't, then I felt euphoric. And so by this, I'll just go and say it. And I'll probably talk more about this in another episode. So a lot of times when I get misgendered, I automatically go to, it's my body. It's what my body looks like. It looks too feminine, too curvy, da 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 da. Sometimes it's like, oh, I shouldn't have chose to wear this shirt, those pants, those shoes, or like, oh, I really need a haircut. Or better not put those, like, see, I have my earrings in. There was a long time where, because usually I don't even have them on this side, but I would wear them on both sides. And then as soon as I got misgendered, I was like, it was the earrings. Even if they weren't like girly earrings, which don't really believe in that. That's, earrings are earrings. It's jewelry. Everybody should be able to feel free to wear them and not have it define their gender. So anyway, going back, I'm digressing. So it would feel like a big deal to me, and I would make it about me. And I had this experience, actually it's happened a couple times at work recently, where I'd get called Miss and Ma'am, or, grouped into the ladies, but then I would go to do something else and I'd get called Sir a couple times. And I kind of took a bigger look at the whole picture, and I'm like, well, same outfit, same person in the same day. It's me. I'm still me. I didn't do anything different. I'm the same person I was when I was called Miss. I'm the same person when I was called Sir. And I thought, well, it's somebody else's perception of me. It's what they make of it. And I don't have control over it, but I'm also not contributing to it in any way. It's how they were brought up. It's how they learned to perceive the world, to perceive gender. And therefore, as long as I know who I am and I accept that, I embrace it, I know my pronouns, I know that I'm transgender, I know that I'm non-binary, that's really what matters. And I can't say, no, I'm not allowed to feel a little funny or a little disappointed if somebody gets it wrong, but I don't want to let it take up so much headspace. I don't want to let it kind of bring me down, I just don't want to be weighed down by it. It's a deal, but it's not, to me, it's not a big deal, at least not anymore. And it's okay to recognize these things and evaluate, but I don't need to just replay them over and over my head and stress about them and really let it take my day down, because that's something that I would do. I could be having a really good day and something like that would make me feel like garbage, or I could be having a crummy day and that would just be the icing on the cake. So I guess my takeaway from this, and what I want to give to you, is that first of all, we all need to give each other a lot of love, but give yourself a lot of love, have compassion for yourself. This year plus has been so difficult, so many drastic changes. I know for me, it was like my life flipped upside down, then flipped back upside down with a whole bunch of things in between. It was like a really messy snow globe, I guess, that was on one side and then got flipped to the other side. And then there was all that stuff in between. So give yourself a lot of love. Feel free to evaluate these things and think about them, but don't let them weigh you down. Don't let them steal your joy, and ask for what you need. If there's something that you need regarding bathrooms, your pronouns, you're not inconveniencing anybody. You're respecting yourself. You're doing yourself a service, and you would hope that other people would be willing to give you that respect too. But even if they're not, make sure you have that respect and love for yourself. It's so important. It's really important, especially in these times. And really, it's just one day at a time. Don't let the day before define the next day. Don't let one thing that happened define who you are or your feelings for the entire day. And make sure that if you are struggling, to reach out to somebody, to talk to people about this, because the other thing that's helped me a lot is processing it, having people to process this with and talk to about it, and listen. So that's what I got for today. I'm looking forward to talking to you all again. I'm not sure yet what the next subject will be, but if you have any ideas, I would love to see them. So please leave them in the comments below. Make sure to like and follow me. And before I go, I'm just going to show you, I am wearing this really lovely shirt that I like very much. It's trying to fit it all in. So it says "More Colors, More Pride." And it is from a lovely person named Dana. And I will also leave her information down below as well, because I really think you should check out her site. She's got some really great swag. And that is about it. So I wish you all a really lovely day, week, night, day, depending on when you watch this. And I look forward to talking to you all soon.